Most people believe they know why they can't focus anymore. They blame their phone, they blame social media, they blame dopamine, apps, notifications, noise. That explanation feels safe because it points outward. But here is the uncomfortable truth. If distractions were the real cause, everyone would be equally unfocused. They aren't. Some people can sit in silence and work for hours. Others collapse after 5 minutes alone with their thoughts. The environment didn't change between them. The structure did. Focus is not destroyed by stimulation. Focus collapses when inner order disappears. This is stillness and direction. If you're here looking for productivity tricks or hacks, this will feel wrong. But if you want to understand why focus has vanished from modern life and how it becomes inevitable again, stay. And if this way of thinking resonates, like the video and subscribe, not for motivation, but to train your mind toward order instead of distraction. Here's what most people don't want to hear. Distraction is not the enemy. Distraction is the symptom. A mind that is ordered does not chase noise. A life that is structured does not collapse into drift. People lose focus because they live without internal command. They wake up without direction. They start tasks without boundaries. They consume information without hierarchy. And then they wonder why attention fractures. The mind mirrors structure. If your life is fragmented, your attention cannot be whole. This is why removing apps doesn't fix focus, why digital detoxes fail, why motivation fades after a few days. You are trying to solve a structural problem with surface-level fixes. The Japanese understood this centuries ago. They never tried to focus more. They trained order. They believed attention naturally follows structure, not effort. This is why monks could sit for hours without distraction, why warriors could remain present under chaos, why craftsmen could work with absolute absorption, not because they were disciplined in the modern sense, but because their lives were aligned. Modern life is not, and a disordered life produces disordered attention. This chapter should unsettle you, because it removes a comfortable excuse. That thing is stealing my focus. Nothing steals what is not guarded. Focus disappears when there is no inner command telling it where to stay. In the next chapter, I'll show you the real cost of this inner disorder, how it quietly erodes attention, decision-making, and self-respect long before you notice distraction taking over. Inner disorder doesn't just steal focus. It drains you quietly. Most people don't notice it happening. They feel tired, restless, unfocused, but they can't explain why. They assume it's normal. It isn't. A disordered life creates constant friction inside the mind. Every unfinished task pulls at attention. Every unclear priority competes for energy. Every delayed decision stays open in the background. The mind never rests. And a restless mind cannot hold focus. This is why people feel exhausted without doing anything difficult. They are carrying dozens of open loops, unmade decisions, unfinished actions, unclear direction. Each one demands mental energy. This constant demand fragments attention. Focus does not disappear suddenly. It erodes, minute by minute, choice by choice, distraction by distraction. The Japanese understood this erosion. They believed a man loses power long before he notices weakness. By the time attention collapses, inner disorder has already taken root. This is why modern people struggle to sit in silence. Silence exposes disorder. When noise disappears, the mind is forced to confront everything left unresolved. Most people escape this feeling immediately. They reach for stimulation, not because they crave pleasure, but because they want relief from internal tension. Distraction becomes self-medication. This is the real cost of inner disorder. You lose the ability to stay with yourself. You avoid stillness, you avoid focus, you avoid depth. Because depth requires order. A chaotic life cannot produce stable attention. The mind mirrors the system it lives in. If your days are unstructured, your attention will scatter. If your actions lack boundaries, your focus will collapse. The Japanese never allowed this erosion to begin. They closed loops quickly. They limited choices deliberately. They created rhythm in their days, not for efficiency, but for clarity. Clarity calms attention. This chapter should feel uncomfortable because it suggests your lack of focus is not caused by technology or modern life. It is caused by how you live inside it. And that means responsibility returns to you. In the next chapter, I'll show you why motivation can never solve this problem and why discipline, not inspiration, is the only force strong enough to rebuild attention permanently. Motivation is not broken. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do. Appear briefly, create excitement, disappear the moment resistance appears. Most people rely on motivation to focus. They wait to feel ready. They wait to feel inspired. They wait for the right mood. And while they wait, attention decays. The Japanese never waited. They believed anything that depends on feeling cannot be trusted. Motivation is emotional. Focus requires structure. This is the core mistake modern people make. They try to solve a structural problem with an emotional tool. That will always fail. Motivation negotiates. Discipline does not. When motivation fades, the mind asks questions. Do I feel like doing this? Is this still worth it? Maybe later? Every question fractures attention. Discipline removes the questions entirely. The Japanese understood this deeply. They did not ask themselves whether they would train today. They followed sequence. Same time, same order, same action. No evaluation. This is why discipline restores focus. It eliminates choice. Choice sounds like freedom. To the mind, choice is instability. Every choice demands attention. Every decision drains energy. The modern world worships optionality. The Japanese rejected it. They limited options deliberately, not to feel controlled, but to preserve attention. When there is only one path, the mind stops scanning alternatives. Scanning is what destroys focus. This is why motivated people burn out. They are constantly deciding to start, deciding to continue, deciding to stop. Discipline removes this cycle. Once structure is fixed, attention settles naturally. This is the part most people resist, because discipline feels restrictive, and restriction exposes weakness. Motivation hides weakness behind excitement. Discipline reveals it immediately. That is why people avoid discipline. But the Japanese welcomed it. They believed discomfort was proof that structure was working. Discipline was not punishment. It was relief. Relief from endless inner debate. Relief from self-negotiation. Relief from scattered attention. This chapter should challenge you because it removes another illusion, that you need to feel focused to act focused. You don't. Action creates focus. Structure creates action. Motivation is optional. In the next chapter, I'll show you how stillness, something most people fear, becomes the training ground where attention is rebuilt at the deepest level. This is where most people quit. Stillness is where most people fail. Not because it's difficult, but because it removes escape. When noise disappears, the mind has nowhere to hide. This is why people avoid silence. They say they're bored. They say they're restless. They say they can't sit still. What they're really saying is this: I can feel my inner disorder. Stillness does not calm the mind at first. It exposes it. Every unresolved task surfaces. Every unclear priority demands attention. Every avoided decision returns. This is why stillness feels unbearable to the undisciplined. It reveals the cost of disorder immediately. The Japanese understood this. They did not treat stillness as relaxation. They treated it as training, a controlled environment where weakness becomes visible. When a man could not sit still, they did not distract him. They did not comfort him. They kept him still. Because stillness forces alignment. You cannot outrun disorder in silence. This is why modern meditation advice fails. It promises calm. The Japanese expected discomfort. They believed discomfort was evidence that attention was being rebuilt. Stillness strips away stimulation, and when stimulation disappears, the mind is forced to reorganize. This reorganization is painful because the mind resists order at first. Order demands commitment. Order demands boundaries. Noise allows avoidance. Stillness does not. This is why people quit here. They mistake discomfort for failure. The Japanese saw it as progress. They did not sit still to feel peaceful. They sat still to train presence. Presence is not comfort. Presence is endurance without escape. When stillness is practiced consistently, something changes. The mind stops reaching outward because there is nothing to reach for. Attention turns inward. And when attention turns inward long enough, it begins to settle. Not because it is forced, but because there is nowhere else to go. This is how stillness rebuilds focus. It removes alternatives. The Japanese paired stillness with discipline. Same place, same posture, same duration. No negotiation. This predictability trained the nervous system. The mind learned, this is where we stay. Over time, resistance weakened. Attention stabilized. Stillness stopped feeling threatening. It became familiar. This is the moment most people never reach. They quit too early. They leave before attention has time to reorganize. They mistake restlessness for a sign to stop. The Japanese interpreted it as a sign to continue. This chapter should confront you, because it suggests your discomfort with stillness is not a personality trait. It is a training gap. In the next chapter, I'll show you why most people never recover focus at all, not because they lack intelligence, but because they choose comfort over control. This is where separation happens. Most people don't lose focus forever. They choose not to recover it, not consciously, quietly. Recovery demands sacrifice, and sacrifice exposes priorities. Focus requires discomfort, stillness without escape, structure without negotiation, discipline without reward. Most people don't want that. They say they want focus. What they actually want is comfort with productivity. They want to feel in control without giving anything up. That is impossible. The Japanese understood this clearly. They believed focus is earned through restriction. Restriction of options, restriction of stimulation, restriction of impulse. Modern culture rejects restriction. It worships freedom. But freedom without structure destroys attention. This is why people relapse. They sit in stillness for a few days. They follow discipline briefly. They rebuild order temporarily. Then discomfort appears, and they retreat. They loosen structure. They add stimulation. They negotiate boundaries. And focus collapses again. Not because the method failed, but because commitment did. The Japanese expected this moment. They called it the separation point, where desire for comfort collides with desire for control. Most men choose comfort. They justify it. I need balance. I don't want to be extreme. I'll try again later. These phrases sound reasonable. They are surrender. Focus does not return through moderation. It returns through alignment. Alignment demands clear hierarchy. Focus above comfort. Order above pleasure. Structure above convenience. This hierarchy feels harsh. That is why it works. The Japanese believed softness creates drift. Hard boundaries create clarity. This is why most people never recover focus. They dilute the process. They modify discipline to feel better. They treat stillness as optional. They keep escape routes open. And as long as escape exists, attention will flee. This chapter should feel personal because it removes another excuse. That method didn't work for me. It did. You just didn't stay long enough to let it change you. Focus does not return when conditions are easy. It returns when conditions are fixed. In the final chapter, I'll show you the state the Japanese reached where focus no longer needed effort, not because distraction was defeated, but because it no longer had access. This is where focus becomes inevitable. This is where focus stops being something you chase and becomes something that cannot escape. At this stage, the Japanese were no longer trying to concentrate. They were no longer resisting distraction. They were no longer working on focus, because focus had become structural. When life is ordered, attention has nowhere else to go. This is the truth most people never reach. Focus does not survive through effort. Effort implies struggle. Struggle implies instability. Focus survives through inevitability. By this point, discipline is no longer enforced. Stillness is no longer uncomfortable. Structure is no longer questioned. There is no inner debate, no self-talk, no negotiation, no should I. Action happens because it is next. The Japanese believed this state was the end of training, not because mastery was achieved, but because conflict inside the mind had ended. Distraction cannot exist without choice. Choice cannot exist without disorder, and disorder has been removed. This is why focus no longer breaks, not because the world became quieter, but because the mind became settled. The modern mind is always scanning for novelty, scanning for relief, scanning for escape. The Japanese ended scanning. They gave the mind one place to stand. When the mind stands somewhere long enough, it stops looking elsewhere. This is why focus becomes effortless here. Not easy, effortless. Effortless because nothing is pulling attention away. Most people never experience this. They live their entire lives negotiating with themselves. They ask permission to act. They wait for motivation. They bargain with discomfort. And attention leaks through every crack. The Japanese sealed the cracks. They lived in alignment long enough that focus stopped being a skill. It became a condition. This is the state modern people mislabel as discipline. It is not discipline. It is resolution. Resolution ends inner noise. Resolution ends hesitation. Resolution ends distraction. This is why the final stage feels quiet. There is no triumph, no excitement, just clarity. You do what you do because that is what you do. Focus does not need defending. It does not need protecting. It does not need reminders. It exists because nothing inside you contradicts it. This is the end of the path. Not productivity, not optimization, order. And when order is complete, focus no longer breaks because it has finally found where it belongs.